Afghanistan has an exceptionally rich cultural heritage, though the country itself has experienced some very difficult situations due to complicated politics. The looting of archaeological sites is one that the Afghan authorities can address, and we are ready to help. I will start by reviewing how this activity began. Then we will discuss how to stop what is certainly a cultural disaster. A long story. Before 1922, unfortunately, archaeologists were sometimes similar to looters. Both were involved in the unregulated trade in antiquities, and both removed precious objects from the countries to which they properly belonged. Charles Masson, 1800 to 1853, for example, who excavated at multiple sites in Afghanistan, used this as an opportunity to collect large quantities of archaeological artifacts for himself personally, even if later a large part of his collection came to the British Museum. A quickly evolving phenomenon. Afghan authorities became focused on the protection of cultural heritage since the time of Amanullah Khan, 1892 to 1960. Looting was prohibited, as were illegal excavations, and with that, the illegal trade of antiquities decreased. But from the Soviet invasion in 1979 until 2001, the situation changed for the worse. Political and social unrest and a volatile security situation made it possible for archaeological sites to be thoroughly looted, and the illegal market of antiquities was flooded with Afghan artifacts. After 2001, the Afghan authorities, with the support of the international community, made some progress in addressing the problem, but were unable to stop it. The illegal market for antiquities, a closer look. The illegal trade of antiquities rests on three components: the sellers, the buyers, and the items to be sold. Who are the sellers? In the process of selling, we have various layers. A, members of rural or, less commonly, urban communities. B, the intermediaries. C, the antiques dealers. A, the members of the communities. These are people digging and collecting in the fields or scavenging at archaeological digs. They know the locations where ancient artifacts can be found, though they usually don't have an understanding of their historical value. Looting is seen as a source of additional income. The average income to be expected from looting is a little bit more than what these people could earn during a normal day of work. The intermediaries. The first level of intermediaries is usually the people who manage money in the local communities, the goldsmiths, the moneylenders, the landowners. The second level is people related to international smuggling networks. They may actively encourage people to search for more artifacts. The third level, which may be based either in Afghanistan itself, in the transit countries, or even in the destination countries, are the specialists in restoration who determine the commercial value of the objects. The antique dealers, C. Mainly located outside the country, they are in touch with the intermediaries. Now, who are the buyers? A. Private persons. B. Institutions. Private persons. They are located all over the world. Until the 1990s, they were mostly Europeans and North Americans, but now Asian markets, as well as the Arab Gulf countries, are more often the destination. Institutions. Museums which buy on the basis of forged certificates. A case study, Balkh. First archaeological records, first evidence of looting. In 1923, Alfred Fouché, the first director of the French archaeological delegation in Afghanistan, started an excavation in Balkh. He recorded looting going on at the site of Cheshme Shafa, 20 kilometers north of Balkh. He also reported the sale of ancient Kushan coins at the local bazaar. In 1995, informants documented looting taking place in Balkh at Tepe Zargaran. Local villagers had been looting the site on the instruction of local commanders. In 2004, attempts were started to involve the communities to stop the looting. Some looted artifacts had been kept by members of the community. It was important to find the original location of these looted objects to minimize the scientific loss and to better understand the site. Towards a solution, to stop illicit trafficking, we need to work on the sellers as well as on the buyers. Inside Afghanistan, we can mainly work on the sellers and especially on the producers, i.e., those who are doing the looting. For this, we should work on the economic reasons which are driving the producers to pick up illegally the archaeological objects. But we must also focus on educating the producers so they understand not only the damage done to their country's history and its national wealth, but also the huge loss of opportunities to themselves. Looting takes advantage of them because the real profits go to the dealers and to people outside their country. Whereas, if the historical sites remain undamaged, they can create jobs and income for many years to come for the local population through tourism and archaeological work. My name is Jason Felch. I'm an author and investigator based in the United States. Since 2005, I have been researching and writing about the illicit antiquities trade. In 2011, I wrote a book called Chasing Aphrodite about the role that American museums play in the illicit trade. The illicit antiquities trade is a global black market in ancient art. The exact size of the market is not known, but it is likely worth several $billion a year, a fraction of the $65 billion global art market. In many countries, the proceeds of antiquities trafficking fuel conflict and organized crime. For example, the civil war in Syria fueled rampant looting of archaeological sites by all sides in the conflict. And like other transnational crimes, antiquities trafficking relies upon international networks that connect supply and demand. Conflict and instability remove a government's capacity to protect cultural heritage sites, leaving them vulnerable to looting, according to an FBI threat study of the illicit antiquities trade. In recent years, thousands of looted antiquities have been returned to countries of origin. That number is rising rapidly as law enforcement learns more about how the antiquities trade mirrors other forms of organized crime. My research began in 2005 with an investigation of the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, which had acquired its collection of Greek and Roman antiquities rapidly since the 1970s. I began tracing important objects at the Getty back through the antiquities supply chain. What I found was that many of these objects had been recently looted in Italy, Greece, and Turkey. They were smuggled out of those countries, restored, and provided with false papers. They were then sold to private collectors and museums in the United States. This chart was prepared by Getty attorneys as they did their own investigation of where the museum had acquired its antiquities. It shows the trafficking networks that supplied looted Mediterranean antiquities to the Getty and other American museums over several decades. The key actors in this network were several middlemen who connected supply, the looters and smugglers, and demand, the auction houses, private collectors, and museums. When Italian police raided these dealers, they seized archives that showed how the objects in American museums had been looted and smuggled out of Italy. These archives became a key piece of evidence to understand how antiquities trafficking networks work, not just in Italy, but around the world. From this and other cases, experts have developed a conceptual model for the illicit antiquities trade. Looters dig up objects from archaeological sites. Smugglers move those objects out of the source country. Forgers often insert fake objects into the supply chain. Intermediaries, or middlemen, prepare the objects for market with restoration and false ownership histories. Academics and appraisers vouch for their authenticity and value. Dealers sell these objects at auction or to wealthy collectors. Collectors donate these objects to museums. After the Getty investigation, I began looking at trafficking networks in other parts of the world and found a similar pattern. In 2008, several California museums were raided by law enforcement as part of an investigation of an antiquities trafficking network based in Thailand. As with the Getty, the middleman was the key to understanding the Thai network. An American smuggler named Robert Olson brought Thai antiquities into the U.S., where an expert appraised them and dealers sold them to private collectors who donated them to local museums. In 2012, I began investigating a British dealer named Douglas Latchford, who spent decades selling statues smuggled out of Cambodia. Latchford made millions selling looted Cambodian sculptures to the Met and other museums and private collectors. Latchford was criminally indicted, and hundreds of those objects have since been returned to Cambodia. In 2011, a Manhattan antiquities dealer named Subhash Kapoor was arrested for trafficking in looted antiquities and extradited to India, where he remains on trial. For decades, Kapoor ran a trafficking network that looted ruins in India, Southeast Asia, and Afghanistan. He sold those objects to museums in the United States, Australia, and Singapore. To give you a sense of the value of the market at the time of his arrest, Kapoor had objects in inventory worth $100 million. He had been in business for decades, suggesting he may have sold hundreds of millions of dollars in looted antiquities over the years. What about Afghanistan? What do we know about illicit networks there? The Kapoor case revealed a looting and smuggling network in Afghanistan that, according to law enforcement, remains in business today, the Butt network. U.S. prosecutors allege Zahid Parvez Butt and his son Zishan Butt have operated a trafficking network in Afghanistan and Pakistan for decades. To this day, the Butts supply dealers, auction houses, private clients, and museums worldwide with illegal cultural property, according to a criminal filing in the United States. They have also operated art galleries in several countries: Kashmir Art Gallery in Islamabad, Pakistan, Lotus Gallery in Bangkok, Thailand, Rawi Al Lotus Hong Kong Limited in Hong Kong, and Rawi Al Lotus Carpets and Novelty in Dubai. The Butts established a strategic network of contacts in the USA, Europe, China, Japan, Russia, the United Arab Emirates, Australia, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and India, prosecutors alleged. Among them was Subhash Kapoor, who bought several Gandharan sculptures from the Butts and personally traveled to Afghanistan to visit archaeological sites that were being looted. In July 2005, Kapoor visited Pakistan and purchased several objects from the Butts, including a monumental Buddha head. He paid the Butts approximately $65,000 for the head. The object was shipped to Kapoor from the Butts Dubai business. Once in the U.S., the objects were cleaned by Richard Salmon, a Brooklyn restorer. In 2006, Kapoor offered the monumental Buddha for sale at a price of $4.5 million. He described it as follows. This colossal marble head of a Buddha is the largest, most important, and most astonishing Kushan period sculpture from the ancient region of Gandhara. It so far surpasses anything else known from this area that is not only the most essential sculpture from this period, it is also entirely unique. The sculpture was seized by U.S. law enforcement in 2012. The following year, Kapoor returned to Pakistan and purchased 6 calligraphic Quranic wall tiles from the Butts. He paid $20,000. They were shipped to Kapoor from the Butts Dubai business. Once in New York, Kapoor paid Salmon $24,850 to restore the tiles. To sell the stolen tiles, Kapoor created a false provenance, claiming they had been acquired in the 1960s by the parents of Selina Mohammed, his girlfriend at the time. He also obtained a certificate from the Art Loss Register for the tiles, claiming they had not been recorded as stolen. Kapoor later offered them for sale as Kashigari-style glazed tiles used originally to decorate the wall of a mosque or a shrine for prices ranging from $55,000 to $125,000. In 2008, he sold one of the tiles to Michael Paget, a representative of the Princeton University Art Museum, for $40,500, court records show. Lessons learned. These case studies show us several things. The illicit antiquities trade thrives in countries where there is conflict and instability. As a transnational crime, it relies upon trafficking networks that link supply and demand across borders. Transnational crimes require a transnational response, and law enforcement agencies need to collaborate across borders. The weak points in these trafficking networks are the middlemen, and their archives or business records contain valuable evidence. Efforts to disrupt antiquities trafficking networks should focus on these middlemen. Antiquities trafficking will continue as long as there is demand for these objects on the art market. To halt demand, those that buy looted antiquities must also be targeted for their role in the trafficking networks.